Welcome to the second week of 2 albums a week. Woo! Last week we chose the albums Morning Phase by Beck and Marvin Gaye's What's Going On, which turned out to be very chilled choices.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a second. Let's get the administrative things out of the way. Our good friend Daniel suggested a good idea. Instead of us two choosing the 2 albums every time, I could open a forum type thing, like a group on Facebook, and each of you will choose your own album, and at the end of the week, you'll post your thoughts on that album. And that way, we'll have so many albums covered by so many people and a lot more to talk about. Also, you guys won't have to go, oh, I'm not that into that album, I already heard it. So I think it's just a better idea. You can do it in pairs like I'm doing with Ariel, or you can do it on your own. I'll create a Facebook group for it. We can also do video responses in YouTube, whatever. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we work on musician schedules. It's once a week on Sunday or Friday.
That's another thing. We should move this to Friday. Friday seems like a better idea for us over here, all the way back in time in the United States, lagging behind all of you. Ariel, take care of your shit, man.
I'm not in LA, man. I'm in the fucking city.
I'll create a Facebook group. We can all post albums that are on our wish list there, so we can all get inspired on new albums to listen to, and we can all talk about all these albums and have a good time.
Yeah, we get bored without you.
Let's talk about Morning Phase and Marvin Gaye.
Let's.
This episode is going to be a lot quicker. I had an okay time listening to both. It was a good atmosphere, good vibe, sounds good. I can't believe I'm saying these words coming out of my mouth, but I agree with Kanye West. I don't understand why this album won a Grammy. It's okay, it's nice. I enjoyed it.
Beats me.
And I don't remember one thing about it.
Do you know Beck's like a couple albums back? You know this album, Sea Change? It sounds the same.
I think that sounds better on Sea Change. I noted a couple of snares or basses and I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. That's as much of an impact as that album left with me.
I mean, yeah, it's so surprising. And I also just randomly was looking into this studio in New York called Electric Lady. Have you heard of it? And I went on their website and looked at the spec of the studio. And of course, Beck's Morning Phase was recorded there.
I thought it was recorded in all sorts of places. I was reading and he said
I
he started it a few years ago in Nashville and carried it on over several years. Yep, I don't have an opinion. Do you have any specific points?
Not really, except exactly like his album Sea Change, which was great. I like him. I like his other albums. Every album that he makes is different and cool in a different way, and this one was not different and not cool, and he won a Grammy for it. It's weird.
I know a few songs from Midnight Vultures.
It's a good album.
I like the ones I know. I know some songs from Sea Change. I like some of those. But other than that, I don't know Beck. And to hear a complete body of work, an album, won a Grammy first. This one, not a great introduction. Yeah.
He's a Scientologist, that's why. Let's move on.
Marvin Gaye.
Marvin Gaye.
Any thoughts?
My main thought would be whoever mixed this album is not a drummer. Because in some of the songs, the drums are like so behind. You can hear like every little speck of sound on the bongos or something and no drums.
You're saying the percussionist was the mixing engineer. The version I listened to also had additional versions of the mono single releases. And I really like the sound of those. The sound generally is kind of pleasant. Not very hi-fi-y, but just very heartfelt. I couldn't really connect to this album. I read about it, that it came from the time after Vietnam and Marvin Gaye going through his own changes and struggles as an artist, trying to find meaning, I guess. Connecting with his friends who saw, peaceful protests being violently handled. Yeah, I get all of this. It's good. It has a lot of meaning. And I know I was all about meaning last week, but I found it difficult to connect to this album. I put it on. It was a nice feeling. It was just slightly beyond my culture because 70s and American, and I don't speak that way. And it was very sort of going to a party, and that's what he tried to achieve, which he did. It was all over the billboards when it came out. I think What's Going On was number 2. Generally, a lot of singles from this album did very well at the time, but except having a nice feeling in the background while I cooked and drove and whatever.
I agree. The songs also sounded like the whole album was made out of interludes. You know what I mean? It wasn't real songs to me, and it's weird to say it because What's Going On is such a benchmark in every way, songwriting, production, everything. It sounds fantastic too. I don't know.
First time I heard the song What's Going On was the reworked version that happened after 9/11.
Yeah, that was That's terrible.
Yeah. I didn't know that was a cover.
Oh, you didn't know?
But it made sense back then. Or at least I was part of the history as it happened and it made sense.
That song never made sense.
It's funny how both these albums
me.
are like full of strings and huge production and, you know, the songs aren't bad, but just didn't really change my life.
I'm gonna stand with the point that I talked about last week about not really being affected as much by very literal music. This album is definitely super literal. Every word that he says there is, this word has a meaning, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, wasn't profound musically to me. Sounds great.
I don't remember many melodies, I have to agree. So let's choose 2 new albums for ourselves. You guys are welcome to follow along or choose your own albums and join in and participate. The albums me and Ariel chose for next week are Joni Mitchell's
Turbulent Indigo,
that won a Grammy in 1995 for Best Pop Album, which, interesting, that's as much as I know about this album, and the album Band of Joy by Robert Plant and the Band of Joy from...
last year, I think, 2014. It's recent.
You have your own wish lists and albums you want to listen to. This was an extremely chilled episode of 2 albums a week.
It's totally fine. It's totally fine to have an uninteresting week.
Yeah, it's fine to not think much about the albums you heard. We heard them. That's the point of it. I now have heard these albums. I haven't before. Till next time, peace.